Welcome back to Tech Talks from Commercial Baking. I'm your host, Maddie Lambert. In this episode, sponsored by Lallemand Baking, I'm speaking with Siva Patahil, Director of Baking Applications and R&D, and Jonathan Kuzam, Product Application Specialist. And today we are discussing enzyme solutions for modern formulation challenges. Jonathan, Siva, thank you both so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having us here.
Yes, we're delighted.
Okay, so I want to start our conversation by talking about health and wellness because when you're talking about enzyme solutions, it ties in perfectly with the current trend going on right now. Consumers are looking at their labels, they're wanting the pumped up protein, the extra fiber, they're wanting sugar substitutes or unsweetened products altogether. So, how are these trends impacting current product development? And how have enzyme solutions made their way into the conversation when you're talking about these trends?
So health and wellness, I'm glad we start here because it's been a backbone of our industry trends for years now. Right now it's changing a little bit though. So we're hearing more about gut health, we're hearing more about ultra-processed food, and we're hearing a lot about protein and fiber. Protein in particular, one market research report that I was reading said that it is the number one indicator for purchase intent in new product launches in bakery. Add all of this against the backdrop of tighter regulations globally around food and food labeling, conditions are ripe for disruption. Particularly if you look at categories like packaged bread and rolls, these are very cost-sensitive categories. So people are expecting to get less sugar, fewer additives, more fiber, more protein. And so a lot of the formulation work in the industry, this is where it's happening. Historically, we leaned on chemical additives to meet these expectations, but now with ingredients lists becoming a battleground for differentiation, these additives are becoming more of a liability. In fact, many private label customers won't even buy products that contain these additives. So if you're interested in where enzymes are entering the conversation, this is it. It's worth pointing out they're not new to baking, and they've risen to this type of challenge in the past. So we're excited to see that there are new opportunities like this showing up in new product formulations.
Unlike the other added ingredients like emulsifier you put into the system, you need to add a lot. But in the case of enzymes, you don't need to add that high of an amount. The idea is to use the inherent availability of substrates for enzyme within the flour. In the flour, you can have proteins and you can have starch and you can have other components present, lipids, etc. You can use that inherent components to act with enzymes and generate some beneficial effect. In the first one, the sugar reduction, we are taking advantage of the inherent starch component present within the flour to generate monosaccharides and even disaccharides. These are the sugars which are much more important because sugars are needed for the yeast to do the fermentation. So they enhance the production, enhance the growth and activity of the yeast, thereby enhancing the gasification, the gas production. Much of the sugar you produced in the system with this technology, the yeast will utilize it, so you don't have too much remaining residual sugar present in the system. So that's a benefit. In the second part, we are talking about the BTR prime technology, where we are managing the water within the dough system. The idea is to make that water available to other components of the dough system, such as gluten and starch component, so that you get a better water redistribution within the dough system. So we are using smart combination of enzymes which can specifically release that held water within the dough system, making water more available and making a better water distribution and a better dough development, dough handling machinability, as well as rheology. So we are taking care of everything using the enzyme system. So in theory, we are talking about two technologies here. One is a added sugar reduction system, and one is a better water management system with two different type of Lallemmand's products.
Jonathan, I love what you said about the traditional ingredients kind of being seen as liabilities now, because that's so true with the modern consumer. And it's really important that when talking about enzymes, they're not seen as additives. So, with the push for clean labels at the forefront of all these solutions that bakers are looking for, can you tell me some real world applications where bakers have started using these enzymes to support consumer driven trends?
Yeah, so starting off maybe with the BTR prime. So where I've seen it work really well is for high protein formulations. And the reason for that, if you look at how we make claims around protein for front of pack, often bakers are required to add upwards 25% of the total weight of flour in protein isolates. So this is gargantuan. And in many cases, it almost acts as a dead weight. And these isolates, they absorb a lot of water compared to flour. If we're not able to generate that water in situ, we have that competition between the gluten-forming proteins and the added proteins for water. And so we can't functionalize the gluten inside the product. So BTR prime, by increasing the amount of free water, reduces that competition and allows us to run the product as we would normally. If we look at the FSA, so this is the sugar producing enzyme, there are two ways we can dose it. Where it excels is in a no sugar added product. In these products, particularly when you have calpro or cultured wheat, the yeast will hit a plateau after which will stop fermenting because it runs out of substrate to ferment. If we dose it just right, we're able to reach an equilibrium where the amount of sugar we generate is consumed and you end up with net zero sugar in your finished product. So the yeast can keep working and you can still get a golden crust. If you're making a high protein product or like a multigrain product and it has these bitter notes, you can dose it a little bit higher, and then we're able to mask all of this bitterness. So we've had success replacing up to 12 baker percent of sugar in bread and roll type products.
Wow. Sugar is not an easy ingredient to replace. Siva, I want to bring it back to you. How do both of these enzyme solutions differ from simply adding single function ingredients into these products?
The main ingredients we are talking about in this particular examples are one, the added sugar, and another one is adding more water. Generating that quality water for the baking is also a sustainability constraint. So these are two components, which is sugar and the water you are talking about here. There are additional applications like emulsifier replacement, gluten replacement, and you can think of any chemical replacement in the bakery system. You can smartly use enzymes to replace those.
So, we're talking about modern, of course, but I want to look to the future a little bit. Can you talk to me about if these solutions and how so, if they support the ever-changing tapestry that is the consumer landscape of what they're looking for, what they're shopping for, what they're actually purchasing, and future bakers' innovation pipelines?
Yeah, and I don't think we can necessarily get a clear view into the future, but I think we can say the clean label is here to stay and people want more for less. And enzyme technologies are a really good way of answering both of these. Particularly now the issue of the day is high protein. So we have a toolkit of enzymes which are very effective at addressing that outside of the two we talked about. Essential GR1620 WW. It's a mouthful. But this particular enzyme solution is able to convert part of these non-gluten proteins into proteins which can retain gas. So it builds a stronger network, and dough tolerance is something that bakers will always need. Another issue that comes up a lot, particularly now that we're facing today, it's fiber and protein, is dough buckiness. And so we have an active yeast under the Fermate catalog, which are all very effective at addressing that. They improve the dough extensibility, they improve molding, and they're labeled as inactive yeast. A newer one is our threshold. And so this is our mold inhibition system. It's clean label, it's a cultured wheat. And so for people looking at a total clean label solution, which I think is going to be increasingly in demand, particularly in the private label sector, we have lots of interesting solutions. We also increasingly are present in non-GMO and organic. So for specific niches or certifications, let's say you're making a sourdough on a smaller scale, we have an answer for this type of call.
I do agree that I think clean label is the now and it has staying power. So I think bakers now is the perfect time to start innovating and incorporating these enzyme solutions into their portfolios. So I just have one last question for the both of you. What is the best way for a baker to get in touch and learn about Lallemand Baking's full range of solutions when it comes to enzymes?
So the best way is via our website, lallemandbaking.com. That's spelt right there. We specialize in baking solutions, and so we'd love to hear from you either through our website or our LinkedIn page, Lallemand Baking.
It's a process, and the first step is to contact one of our technical representative. Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, Siva, I cannot thank you both enough for talking to me today about how enzymes are playing a role in current product formulation. This was a really fun conversation, and I'm just so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.